Annette, you sort of touched on this in previous answers, but I want to get real specific in terms of this moment we're in where you've got states like I think Oklahoma is one of those states that's banning critical race theory as if it's, some pernicious ideological thing that is being foisted upon students to teach them or to brainwash them, inculcate them into some false reading of history. You are a historian, so could you try to explain or give your perspective of why there is so much pushback against even acknowledging the role race and white supremacy plays in every aspect of our lives in this country?
Well, I think it's political. People are using critical race studies. People are not teaching critical race studies in K through 12. I mean, I'm a law professor. This doctrine, this theory, this notion, these things were formulated by one of my classmates, Kim Crenshaw, by her mentor and a Harvard professor, Derek Bell, and many other people. This is something that law professors talk about the pervasive effect of of race in the law, and seeing the role that it plays, even when it's not specifically about race. But this is not talking about race in and of itself is not critical race theory.
Right.
Critical race theorists write about race and talk about race, but not all people who write about race and talk about it are critical race theorists. So this disinclination, I think, comes from people are harping on it because they know it pushes a button among some members of the populace, and just like Sharia, I mean, cancel culture,
Hmm.
or any number of things that you pull up as a boogeyman that is supposed to be overtaking the country. Well, critical race theory has been around for decades. Why all of a sudden now that this is some newfangled thing that has is being taught in American schools? It's a ruse. It's a distraction. It's a culture war distraction to keep people from thinking about a lot of the really serious issues that we have to face in this country. And so, you know, we have lived in a racial hierarchy. Race matters to many Americans in a way, and uh, they know, politicians and people know, that they can push a button. I mean, they used to use the N word to describe what
Hmm.
this is, but now you can't do that. So it's some other thing that's supposed to awaken these very atavist, these sort of deeply held, passionate views about race and make people react rather than to think. Now, wait, seriously, are people, what is it? And are they really teaching that K through 12? Is this some newfangled thing that's come to the fore? And it really is not.
Well, speaking of, I mean, the Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, recently said in a television interview, quote, "We should be teaching American history. We should not be teaching that people are somehow unequal."
Well, I don't know what that means. I mean, what he's saying is he doesn't want people to acknowledge that African American people have been treated as second-class citizens. They don't want to talk about the fact that in the hometown where I was born, for periods of time, Black people had to be indoors during sundown, before sundown. This was in a democratic republic where they were citizens and they were treated this way. And you can't talk about that because why? Because it makes certain
Mhm.
people guilty, ashamed of the way their ancestors carried on. Yeah, but nobody's saying that they did that. I mean, they have a choice, and the choice is to say, I repudiate that kind of behavior, and we're going to move on. But
Right.
it's not the response. But you're basically saying I'm supposed to deny my family's history so that other people can feel comfortable, and nobody should be made to do that. That's just
And that
untenable.